Welcome to Music and Medicine on Monday, a collaboration between the School of Music and the College of Medicine here at the University of Iowa. This podcast is designed to help musicians play and to stay healthy. Additional information is available on our free medical website called the Iowa Protocols that can be found by searching for Music and Medicine on Monday at Iowa. We are coming to you from the recital hall at the beautiful Voxman School of Music in Iowa City. My name is Harry Hoffman. I'm a physician at the University of Iowa, and I'd like to introduce our featured performers today. Matt Dulas is playing Euphonium. He's a second-year master's student in music performance. Brad Balster is a sophomore, also in music performance, playing Euphonium. Drew Bonner is a third-year DMA Tuba player, and John Reyna graduated 2 years ago with a master's, about to become a technical sergeant in the U.S. Air Force concert band playing the tuba. John Manning, an associate professor of tuba and euphonium at the University of Iowa. Jeff Wilson, professor of pulmonary medicine at the University of Iowa. And Nick Bainey, a respiratory therapist who is the coordinator for education for respiratory therapy at the hospital. So, John Manning, can you describe a little bit about the instrument?
Well, the tuba itself was patented in September of 1835 and by Wilhelm Wieprecht. He was a Prussian military bandmaster, and the Prussians were really organized and into the different equipment and the different strategies for the military. So it was originally invented for military bands in Prussia, pre-Germany, and it was 1835 was just about 20 years after the invention of the valve, these buttons, these cylinders that divert the sound to different parts of the tubing. During the Industrial Revolution and the mass production of brass instruments, it became easier to create these, and amateurs and military and professionals were using them alike. So it was designed to complete the choir of the brass family. We had the sopranos, the trumpets, and the altos, the horns, and the tenors, the trombones, and bass trombone. But the invention of the bass tuba and the contrabass tuba completed the family.
I see. And how about the euphonium?
Euphonium was invented a little later. About 12 years after that, it was invented by Frederick Sommer. Originally called it a sommerphone, but there's also some controversy because around the same time, other manufacturers were experimenting with, as you can guess, because of the competition at the time, of their own version of the euphonium. And there's also a little bit of confusion because us Americans often call the euphonium a baritone horn. And there is a difference between baritone horns and euphoniums. Slight difference in the bore and the way the tubes expand, the color of and the warmth of the euphonium as opposed to the more brighter baritone. But also there are British baritones in the brass band family, so there's a little bit of nomenclature confusion early on, and even still to this day, many people just refer to that instrument as the baritone horn, even if it's technically a euphonium.
Are you good with taking your mouthpiece off and just showing the embouchure and how you actually create a sound?
This is a tuba mouthpiece, and it's designed as the interface between your vibrating lips and air moving over them, and the entrance to the tuba called the lead pipe. And we actually can control quite a bit of the pitch and tone and volume with just a mouthpiece. So raw data is introduced into the instrument, and it's fed into, technically, 7 different bugles welded together. And what I mean by that is natural horns. So the valves just divert to a different length of channel. When I put down the second valve, basically it goes through this little amount of tubing. And so when I lower that, whatever note I'm on just goes down a half step or a minor second. Whereas some valves are much longer. and they control which group of notes you could possibly play, like a bugle, you tap into. You want me to demonstrate something like that?
That'd be terrific.
Okay. So all brass instruments, like a bugle without valves, can produce different notes from low to high, and they start with a fundamental. In this case, this is a C tuba, a contrabass tuba. That's the absolute lowest note. Well, not the absolute lowest note, but that's the lowest open note I can play. And then in the overtone series, it's just the physics of music or physics of sound waves. The next possible note I can get up is 1 octave. Then I can go up to a fifth, then up a fourth, then up a third, and so on. So the total spectrum of what I can play might be after a while in the extreme high range, it almost doesn't matter what valve you put down.
I don't know if the camera's picking up, but your face was turning red as you were doing that.
You'd probably tell us about back pressure.
Yes, we'll talk about that a little bit. My understanding is the euphonium is more of a higher 1 octave above and essentially than the tuba, so it plays more melody, the tuba is more playing the bass?
It tends to. In a band, euphoniums are used quite a bit for solos. Tubas still are used for occasional solos, but often because we have the lowest voice, we're relegated to the role of the bass player. But sometimes we are featured briefly, and there are also concertos and sonatas for the tuba as well.
A sousaphone is mainly for like marching band. It's the ones that kind of wrap around you, and it's easier to carry. It rests on your shoulder, and a lot of marching bands use those rather than, as you might imagine, a tuba like this trying to carry and march at the same time would be a little cumbersome. And so those are designed for military bands by one of John Philip Sousa's actually band members named J.W. Pepper invented the sousaphone, and so that's what's primarily used for. You see them a lot in marching bands.
And Brad, you mentioned that students beginning with the marching band at the University of Iowa carrying the sousaphone around often are so short of breath that they're just carrying it and not actually playing it. Is that true?
Very true. And it's not just the sousaphone too. You'll see a lot with brass instruments just because there's such an air demand when you're already doing an aerobic activity, you're marching, and when you add in that second factor of the instrument and having to focus on putting air through the instrument, having a good sound, but also being able to support your body and be able to replicate what everyone else around you is doing, it's very cumbersome. So normally it'll take probably 2 or 3 games just for most people to actually be able to march and play anything. And still, like, there's still multiple factors of like an experienced player, you're gonna get tired eventually. So you might have to trade off when someone's playing with your neighbor next to you. So it's a very tough activity to try to learn.
So John, do you want to comment on your students' performance and maybe some health issues kind of blending into that comment?
Sure. Well, bravo. It was a great performance. And this is an award-winning quartet. They won first place in a chamber music competition at the Great Plains Regional Tuba Euphonium Conference last May. So they're in great shape. And they picked one of their best pieces because it's interesting. You would think that two tubas and two euphoniums, all notes are low and you can't really distinguish. But the way Zelinchik writes it and the way they perform it, there's moments of independence for each voice as well as harmony for each voice. And that's what we like about playing a tuba euphonium quartet, because we, in a band or an orchestra, we're always playing the same type of part, usually low and boring. And you saw each of the four parts had some very active moments, had some louds, had some softs, had some very low notes from John. He's at the very bottom of our staff. And each person played a role, and with each role, it would be a different hat, and they traded hats every 4 bars. So that's the beauty of chamber music, is that it's one person to a part, and you occasionally get the solo or get the bass line or the counter melody, or you occasionally get the rest.
And you mentioned a band called Tuba 4?
Yeah, my colleague Gail Robertson, who's currently teaching at Indiana University, she was a professional euphonium player at Walt Disney World in a groundbreaking group called the Tuba Fours. And they had 2 tubas and 2 euphoniums, and they would stroll Main Street in Disney World. And she's an amazing player, an amazing arranger, and she wrote for that group a lot. And I think it inspired a lot of tuba euphonium groups.
Great. Well, this has been terrific. Additional detail regarding this and other episodes of Music and Medicine on Mondays can be accessed by searching the internet for Music and Medicine on Mondays at Iowa, or looking at our website or the QR code displayed.